Good evening, and welcome to the Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5, deep in the bowels of the United Police State of Amnesia. Today is July 25th, 2014, and I have a special guest with me today, Lily Reeves, who is a very thoughtful, educated young woman who has made a study of an emerging science called transhumanism. You've probably heard of it. Many of you out there, many of the viewers to this show, I've talked about transhumanism before, and in the 21st century, we live in a science fiction world as a result of developments in robotics and neuroscience and eugenics. The views on eugenics and futurists are very, very interested in implementing the new emerging technology of transhumanism and incorporating into daily human life. What would be the effects on the human race, on individual humans, of participating in the enhancements that would be required, the surgical enhancements and genetic enhancements that would take place if a person were to become merged with a machine. That's really what transhumanism is. Let's go to Lily. And Lily, why don't you tell us what transhumanism is, first of all?
Well, you can visit Wikipedia. Here's the definition of transhumanism. We can't read it because it's too far away.
But it is basically what I said, isn't it? Would you agree that more or less that it's enhanced human abilities? In other words, people would be able to be merged with the machine, with the technology that's available, the robotics and as well as computers, right? And they would live longer. They would be smarter.
It is augmentation.
And they even make the claim, the transhumanists make the claim that we would be somehow happier, we would have enhanced well-being, and they even go so far as to say that we could somehow, and I find this particularly amusing, somehow become more spiritually advanced.
At its root, it has a religious agenda, or not maybe religious, but what the connotation of religion is. Yes, it has, and that's the end of it.
Well, okay, what I really like about it is, and I think this will be true in the future, is that, the more money you have.
And an ultimate goal of transhumanism is to merge with God, to become God, and or to become gods, but actually to become God.
Well, okay, what I really like about it is...
So on the surface of transhumanism, it appears to be just augmentation. So you've lost your leg, you get prosthesis or eyes, but that is just really the very surface of it. It's actually about merging with computers, superintelligence, not just augmentation, but to turn us into supermen, superhumans.
Not necessarily us, but somebody.
Well,
not necessarily everybody, but maybe
people.
Maybe a select few.
Well, they don't see it that way. They don't see it as an elitist agenda. They really, except for some, I mean, they believe that this is the path of human evolution. Human evolution is to merge with machines, merge with computers, and become supermen through artificial intelligence.
And they feel that this is the next step in evolution. This will, with the use of technology, it will be doing what nature cannot do, or maybe would take millions of years to do, but within a matter of a few decades, or 100 years or 200 years, they would be able to push humanism into transhumanism. In other words, a new human species, an entirely new human species.
That's right.
That would, and I was looking at a video about it just before the show, and they were saying that all of the humans who were hooked in to the mainframe computer would have access to the special knowledge. And if you didn't have,
Yes.
if you weren't hooked in, you wouldn't be, it would be a group mind almost.
Hive
you know?
mind.
It would be a hive
Complete
mind.
hive mind.
In which, in which you could be solving problems or dealing with
Right.
certain situations and work as a group
Yes.
rather than an isolated individual. And then the traditional human being would gradually become extinct. That's the idea, I
Right.
think.
Although, a couple of things. We would be hive mind, and it would be a telepathic existence. And we would work together. And transhumanists do see themselves as very moral people. This is a moral agenda in their minds. They believe themselves to be even morals and values far above normal, what normal
Right.
values would be. That this is for the good of, this is evolution.
Essentially like the Nazis.
Essentially
That's
like the
exactly
Nazis,
the
because
same way they felt.
You can read the definition on Wikipedia and you can learn a little bit about transhumanism, but to be absolutely 1,000% clear, this is eugenics revisited and revivified.
Right, sure. Absolutely.
It is, when you think about, and when you say this is an emerging new science, that isn't actually accurate. It isn't an emerging new science. It is an ancient dream that as far back, thousands of years, to revivify people, to reanimate life, to create life that has not heretofore been, to project ourselves and our consciousness into artificial life forms is a very ancient dream. And the Nazis, they revitalized that dream. That was their dream, but they got it from ancient esoteric systems. They didn't just come by it, all of a sudden they wanted to build Superman. This was an ancient esoteric, this comes from ancient esoteric magic, ancient esoteric systems that have been alive and well throughout history. And they wanted to build the Superman. And they weren't, the Holocaust, it was, the Holocaust is said to be, that Hitler hated Jews. Hitler didn't hate Jews so much as he hated anything that he considered defective.
Now, when you're talking about building the Superman, I think the only pathway to create the super race was through breeding. That would be the bloodlines. Is that what you're talking about?
He did
Because
primarily...
even the ancient Egyptians,
Yes.
and even before that, believed that they could create a superhuman or a better human.
Right.
And they wanted to keep that better human within the aristocracy. And so that's
Right.
why that would explain the absolute obsession for thousands of years
Yes.
about keeping the bloodline pure for the aristocracy.
But that was because
And of course
kings
the
came
opposite
from gods.
effect happened.
Kings came from gods. You wanted to become a god because that particular bloodline, that was royal because it was of gods that came.
And
Osiris.
they always
and-
claimed
and-
that they were gods, or they were descended from gods.
That's right.
Or they were partly gods, or my mother was a god, or my father was a god.
That's right.
And this begins to impinge on the idea of the ancient alien theory, that maybe they were, or maybe some people, of course, go with the Atlantean thing, that the Atlanteans, after the fall or destruction of Atlantis, spread out over the world, and they had a superior race and superior intellect, and so they tried to keep that bloodline pure.
That's right.
I think the strange thing about it, though, is that all too often we've seen throughout history, by interbreeding, rather than increasing the intelligence of the human, they actually decrease the intelligence of
That's
the
right.
human. And so, because that's what happens when you interbreed, is all those latent traits that are very often not very desirable come to the surface.
That's right. And I'd like to talk about how media if we could switch gears a little bit, we could talk about how media has predictively programmed us for this philosophy. And it is the going game. It is the philosophy that is dominating our lives right now in the world. Not only has it dominated the ancients and, you know, all of history, and that's, we should be very clear about that. But it now has come out into the open. And these philosophers, they write books and they're very open about their agenda. And you think you're watching some really great science fiction movie, but it isn't a new thing. Like, you know, who hasn't seen The Terminator? No. You know, the Terminator movies are so great. You know, what are they? They're, you know, robots who feel, robots who can stand in as fathers, robots who are protectors. But, you know, he was that boy's father, wasn't he, in the end? You know, that's the way he was seen. Lyndall Hamilton's character says, you know, he needed a father, and here was this robot. It wasn't a robot, he was a cyborg. And when you talk about cyborgs, what one of the agendas of transhumanism is to upload our consciousness into machines. So it's really a weird conundrum. So we want to build the new human, the transhuman, and it will be a post-human world in which there will be humans like us, and then there will be these post-humans, these transhumans.
And we will be maybe have the, like in Gattaca, the lower classes, the working
right,
classes,
the lower
people who
classes,
sweep,
the subhuman,
who are
subclasses.
doing the dirty work.
That's right, menial labor.
The ordinary humans.
Right. But when we talk about uploading our consciousness into these machines, what did it begin with? It began with humans. You know, if humans weren't valuable anymore, or if machines could take our place somehow, no. We have to, the technology right now is really interested in, we will not become robots, we will not become machines, we will not become computers. Computers will not overtake us, we will become cyborgs in which we merge with the machine. There's a really important distinction there. And machines, these artificial selves that are almost like a second person to us, they'll be our proxy selves. So, for instance, you know, anybody who's used Siri, you know, or, you know, it's these personal assistants, for instance, is a very interesting part of transhumanism. We'll have these personal assistants, and they'll act as our proxy selves. They'll email, do all of our menial tasks.
And
but
what will
our
we be
consciousness,
doing?
well, we'll be doing more interesting things. But our
Like
consciousness will
lying
be...
around drinking pina coladas?
I guess, yeah.
By the edge of the pool, I
Yeah.
assume.
That's right. And
More interesting things.
well, if you look at a lot of the media that talks about this uploading of consciousness into these avatar-type machines, for instance, there is Avatar, and there's The Matrix, where you know, the humans lay in those beds, and then they have these little buttons on the backs of their heads, and then they're hooked in, and then their proxy selves go and do battle. You know, Neo, he's laying in a chair prone in another reality, but in the Matrix...
In the actual reality.
Yeah, in the actual reality. In the Matrix, he's up and moving and firing guns and shooting, you know, other proxy selves. And then we've got The Surrogate, a really interesting movie with Bruce Willis. Can we watch the trailer on that, Tyler?
It's called, what's the movie called?
The Surrogate. Sorry, I know I had them in order now.
What is
I'm
the, what is that about a little bit?
It's about, well, let's see. It's coming up. It's where you have a surrogate self. You have a proxy self.
It's the trailer. You
Yeah,
got the trailer for it.
And it was a super interesting movie I watched a couple of years ago, and it dawned on me this morning that was really valid.
Robotic human surrogates combine the durability of a machine with the grace and beauty of the human body. With most people living their lives through their surrogate selves, our world has become a safer place. Take a seat in your STEM chair.
Oh, I saw that movie.
And just with the power of your mind, you can control your surrogate and send it out into the real world.
The real people are lying there all
You can
dirty.
live your life without limitations. You see what they see, feel what they feel, and become anyone you want to be from the comfort and safety of your own home. You can finally live the life you've always dreamt of without any risk or danger to yourself.
are confronted with an unprecedented situation. 2 people have died while connected to their surrogates.
I think we may actually have a homicide here. First one in 15 years.
The public cannot be allowed to get the idea that using a surrogate can be fatal.
I think that's
Especially
enough,
if it's
Tyler.
true. I just want to know how an operator
Thank you.
can be killed by signals from a surrogate.
Surreys have been blown to bits
So
without the least
you
bit
have
of
to be
harm
really
to their
careful what
operators.
surrogate
If it were
does,
possible.
because one of the greatest fear of transhumanist philosophers is that artificial intelligence, superintelligence, may evolve to kill us.
Sure, and that's the whole theme of the Terminator series.
That's right, and quite a few other movies, lots of movies about these
Yeah.
supercomputers that take over. What was 2020?
Oh, 2001?
2001, you know,
Yeah, and
that's,
that was-
but lots of movies have that as their theme, that these
Right.
super intelligent
And
computers
that would be
will-
true AI, wouldn't it? Because that would mean that the computer has evolved its own decision-making process independent of its programming.
Right.
And it can decide whatever it wants.
That's right.
Which means it becomes an individualized, sentient being,
Yes.
essentially a human being. And this is, I think, where a lot of people diverge, where some people, many people, believe that it is simply impossible for consciousness
Right.
to develop out of a machine. And also, of course, the way that the transhumanists want to overcome that is by downloading, digitalizing consciousness, human consciousness, into a computer, and that would be the basis of the new
Right.
immortal transhumanist body
Right.
that might even look exactly like a human being,
Right.
but it would be immortal, because anything that
Yes.
any part that wore out could simply be replaced, and you would, and this is where people like Noam Chomsky, who most people think of as a futurist, he's a historian, but he's also a futurist. He's also very interested in the future. He said, this is called this moment in which true AI becomes self-aware could never happen. It is purely science fiction, and I think that the only way that consciousness could be downloaded would be if we are simply biological meat machines,
Right.
like some of these scientists think that we are.
Right.
But the reality, I think, is much more esoteric than that. That consciousness is not physical.
That's right.
Is not physical. It is, and it's not something that you can digitalize and download. You can only simulate it. You can maybe simulate it with a robot. You can make it appear to be conscious, and that's the scary part too, is because let's say that Ray Kurzweil, who's the father of
Yes, that's right.
transhumanism,
That's right.
let's say, and he's talked about wanting to do this, is that when he reaches a point of near death, then what would happen is he wants his body to be essentially jettisoned and his consciousness to be downloaded into a machine. In other words, he would have to be killed,
Right.
and then a robot, this robotic body, would say, "Hello, everyone. I am Ray Kurzweil. I feel great. I feel wonderful. Look at my wonderful body. Look what I can do. Look at all the things that I can think. Everything that was Ray Kurzweil is now me, and I am the new Ray Kurzweil." But how do we know that Ray Kurzweil didn't just program this computer with all his memory? Because apparently the memories can be digitalized, but that's our memories, because those are stored in our
It's hard for you and
neurons.
I to get our minds around, but these people believe this, and science is working very, very quickly towards what they call the singularity, which is the moment in which it's like the 100th monkey, the tide will have turned and the future will be unknown. But they believe this, and I think we should load that Jodie Foster web interview really quickly, because you and I don't have to worry about it, because it won't be us. We won't have enough money to do this. When you talk about the elite, they believe this, they seek this, they want this, but we'll be one of the humans. We won't be one of the transhumans. So let's watch Jodie Foster. She's very
What's
uncomfortable.
frustrating about this place?
One gadget.
Okay, what I really like about it is and I think this is will be true in the future, is that, you know, the more money you have and the more privilege that you have, the more integrated with computers you become. So human beings become integrated with computers, and if you're a well-bred, well-educated billionaire, chances are you have as many, you know, computer parts as you do organic parts, and they become one.
Awesome.
That was
Really
she was
creepy.
doing an interview about the new movie Elysium.
That's
she was
right.
in, right?
That's right. And she talks about that it's gadgetry, which is what, you know, you and I were talking about. You know, are these going to just be gadgets? Are these cyborgs going to be, you know, really high-tech gadgets? Or will they manage to upload consciousness, memories, intelligence, and will? And that is their dream, is to translate themselves with perfect knowledge and perfect will. I'd like to read you a little quote here. It says, they want to translate to an incorruptible form, an escape, a stop to the wheel. This is because they intend to become immortal. Not only will they be super intelligent, but also immortal. To bless themselves with perfect knowledge and perfect will, to become as gods and transform it in our image for our own delight. And
For our own
you
delight.
know, to bring the universe to heal.
Uh-huh.
And that is really in effect.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's still interesting that the root race will be humans, won't it? It will always be humans.
But here's how I feel about it. I don't think that it's possible. For one thing, they talk about digitalizing knowledge or intelligence, okay? You have to define what intelligence is, for one thing. What is intelligence? What about instinct? Can you download your instincts?
Right.
You know, and your memories, yes, maybe, since they are stored in the brain, but they also talk about muscle memory.
Right.
The muscle memory that a basketball player has when he takes that shot, he's not thinking about he's not using his will to direct that basketball into the basket. That's happening because, well, I think scientists aren't even completely sure how it happens.
Right.
That how a person who's skilled can, who's a writer, for instance, can create a poem which has such profound depth that
Right.
that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years after it's written, people are finding new depths of meaning.
Right.
And of course, the author of that poem may or may not have known that what he was writing would resonate down through the
Right.
ages. But if you read about poets and about writers, about playwrights, they do oftentimes have a sense that they're transmitting a message,
Yes.
almost in a magical way, and that they know that this is great and that this will resonate. You know, all kinds of strange things happen in this world that these transhumanists don't seem to understand and they don't acknowledge. Like, for instance,
Right.
Just to give an example, like someone said about a very famous poet, Wordsworth, who was a young man, and he was in a shop or something, and someone said, after he left and bought his whatever it was, he walked out, and someone recorded that someone said that young man will be really a great man someday. Now, how did they know that?
Right.
You know, and where is that something that's that someone whose brain has been downloaded into a machine is going to be able to see that? Are they going to be able to see that? Are they going to be able to sense that? I don't think so.
But they
In
see
other words,
themselves as ultimately this will be really the
this is-
highest form of creation
But this is,
imaginable.
but you can see that it's not. It doesn't work that way. It's not even remotely how they think. Their idea of what intelligence is so limited.
Yes,
You know,
yes. Not
that-
only are they
that
delusional,
they're
but
going
it
to be
is very
like
limited.
morons. They're
That's
going to
right.
be basically morons. Is what they're going to be. They're going to be robotic. They're going to be robots who are pretending, who think they're human beings. They're going to be robots who think they're human beings. The real person will not be there at all. The person will be dead. When they kill that person after their intelligence and their personality is downloaded into the machine, that person's going to be dead, dead, dead. And that machine, that's the scary part, is the machine will be able to simulate the person and
Yes.
think it's a person. But it will only, in my opinion, be limited by its programming. So, because I don't think it'll have
if
true
you want to know,
consciousness.
and media again will tell you what the mind of these folks believe. Okay, so what is that movie where they have the cyborgs and Harrison Ford and he's killing he's supposed to be murdering the cyborg and then he falls in love with that cyborg.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. And
The androids,
you see that at the end of that movie, the androids, they fall in love. You find out that he's an android, she's an android. They fall in love, and what does it end on? Well, we don't know what the future will be, but we can see from the movie that they intend it to be a very rosy, wonderful love affair, wonderful life. Now they're free to be who they are, and that they're so much more than we could have believed. Remember the androids that went wrong in Blade Runner, and they hold up in there, and he went in and killed them.
Yeah.
And they believed themselves to be so much more. Their feeling was so great.
Right,
But
right.
I see it more like AI. If you've ever seen AI, Artificial Intelligence by
Right, I've seen
Steven
that too,
Spielberg,
yeah.
and they create these little boys, these children for people who need children. So they have this little boy, Mecha David, and they already the entire society is filled up with Mecha. And they're these cyborgs, that are androids, whatever you want to call them. And they, for instance, one of them is a male prostitute. And
Right.
they do all this menial labor.
Yeah.
And so there's this little boy, Mecha, this little David. And when she's done with him, when her boy comes out of the coma, she drops him off in the forest.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they're tortured in those circuses, and these terrible circuses where
Right.
they blow their heads off and people are tearing, destroying the Mecha. And David gets away, and anyway, the end of the movie is where David is in the bottom of a lake or the ocean, and he's just in frozen time.
Uh-huh.
He's completely frozen. He's conscious, but he's just in some sort of eternity until he's rescued from this eternity by these advanced aliens,
species
right?
that
Who
thousands of years later.
Yes, who value him for the window that they can see into humanity, what humanity once was or
Okay.
thought.
Right.
But he himself is still frozen. He will never be able to die. He will never
Yeah.
be able to evolve. He will
Yeah.
never be able to do anything. He
Yeah.
was created too well, but not well enough. And that really will be. But I think they value the hive mind we talked about earlier. And when you think about the hive mind, it is really quite frightening because now we have something called the cloud, in which people can store. I'm not real tech savvy, but I know that people store things in the cloud, which is basically the noosphere. It's the place where you store all your virtual stuff.
Well, sure, yeah.
And what the hive mind will be is that it's a lot like what Jung talked about, the collective unconscious, and they envision that collective unconscious as bringing it really into functionality, and that functionality is that we'll upload into that cloud, into the noosphere, and that will be the hive mind, and we can pull down from it anything that we want. It doesn't, our knowledge, our wisdom, our experiences don't have to be stored in our own heads. Then we can just pull it from this.
Right.
But
Well,
it
essentially, we already have that, don't we? I mean, don't they have that with really the iPhone, the
Working
iPad,
toward
and
greater
personal
and
computer
greater,
is really already that.
Yes, but we're working towards
know.
greater and greater implementation of that all
And
the
what
time.
they want, what their idea is that instead of looking at your iPhone or your computer, you would simply, presumably, open up sort of essentially an internal
Right.
computer screen, and then maybe mentally access the information
Yes.
that you want.
Well,
which is, what's the point? You've
they
already
in-
got it. You've
Well,
got
they
all the
intend.
information
Well,
you need.
you're
you
not.
know?
But you're not. You're not. You don't work well enough. And the thing is that they don't intend to make the human brain work better, except through artificial means. And the artificial means are, and believe me, it is implanting thousands of tiny, tiny machines, chips into your brain, computer chips in your brain, that will take over a lot of your sensory functions and your a lot of your intelligence, and you won't have to rely on now like people rely on their phones. Like people, I always memorized all these phone numbers, and I could just bring up anyone's phone number. You know, I could tell you Lowe's right now, but I don't have a cell phone, and I still rely on my memory.
That's
But
right.
I know a lot of people who have absolutely couldn't tell you their own cell phone number unless they looked on their cell
That's right.
phone.
That's right.
So
People are losing the abilities
Yes.
that they had. For instance,
they're being degraded. Humans are being degraded.
I knew a guy back in the 80s who could do square roots in his head. Any square
Yeah.
root. Any square root. He didn't need a machine to do that.
Right.
His brain could do that without any enhancements at all.
Right.
And you can train your brain to do those type of things. There are some people, in fact, that have a special ability, and I forget what it's called, that they can remember everything that that ever happened to them on any particular day in their entire life.
Yes.
They can bring that back.
Yes, there have been
and-
TV shows on that, and they
Yeah,
wish they didn't have
and-
it.
Yeah, exactly.
like
Some of them, yeah,
exhaustive memory.
because it becomes because then they come back unwilling. You know,
Right.
Even when they don't want it, the memory is there.
Right.
So the resources of the human brain almost appear to be incredibly powerful machines and tools that we already have. So this whole idea that Ray Kurzweil and these others have is there really is something else going on here, I think.
Yes, something
it's
else.
more than just we're going to make people smarter through technology, but they want,
That's right.
just like any priest class all through history, they want an advantage over other people. And they think that if they have access to this technology because they have the money and power.
Right.
And also there's an element of scam here.
Yeah.
Because what happens is people who are rich and have the money to live forever or have enhanced life.
Right.
Now this is possible. The not living forever, but to live longer. This is getting to be to the point where it's possible.
Yes.
In fact, the fact that Dick Cheney is still alive. He should not be alive. He should not be alive. But the only reason he is alive is because he had access to the advanced technology
Yes.
that keeps him alive. Now, not everybody has that. So we're already seeing
Right.
the enhancements that level of enhancement. And we know, you and I know, that Dick Cheney is essentially a moron.
Yeah, he's augmented,
You know,
not in a good way.
Yeah, just the fact that he's still alive and is not, he's delaying his eternal reward, which I don't think is going to be too fun for him. He's delaying it as long as possible.
That's right.
But when he goes to his reward, it may be delayed a few years, but he will not be able to live forever, and something else is going to break down. But you can see how people with wealth and power would be willing to pay for that.
Yes.
And pay a lot of money. So we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar global business in the making here right now that a lot of very unscrupulous as well as very idealistic scientists and medical people are going to want to get on board with.
Well, for instance, when we talk about the noosphere and the cloud, if our lives reside in the cloud, that cloud is owned by companies, and they will know everything about you. They, like these
That's
little
right.
personal assistants. You can't have a personal assistant unless she knows everything about you, Siri. But even more. And these companies, when you have your consciousness in a cloud, and you can just pull from it what you want, that just sounds so convenient. Except for the fact that that's all owned by corporations,
Right.
and they will do with it as they will.
Exactly.
And the whole thing is a very deep rabbit hole, let's just say. It links off to so many topics, so many awful things, awful things. I mean, this is a series that we could do for 2 years and really only barely cover it, because it's very, very, very deep and very ugly. And it has implications that are so nightmarish that really people, and when people don't educate themselves about this, I want to be very clear that when people do not educate themselves about this, this is coming. This is coming, and it is upon us. And if you
Google
have children,
Glass. Google Glass.
yes,
The glasses.
that's right. But yes, right. It's these little harbingers is what that is. All these little things are harbingers, and you can see them, but you better pick up on the knowledge, because if you have children or you have grandchildren, this is the world that they will inhabit, and it is a very frightening world. We think that right now we're so upset about, the government surveils us. Well, let me tell you, that is so. The surveillance that they have on us now is considered primitive as to what is being planned for us when they know all your thoughts and feelings.
Sure.
It will be so far beyond 1984. Even in 1984, he could sit in a little corner and think his little thoughts and draw his little drawings. When you are augmented, when you are merging, you won't have your own thoughts and feelings. When you talk about great poets, it's because you and I, we value individuals, and we value individual gifts and individual things and the beauty and the truth that come from being a human. But what these folks value is something so different from us that we can't imagine it. This is the dream of psychopaths.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
this is a psychopathic. I also want to say something else, and that is that and of course it flew out of my mind, but it's
Well, one thing I've been wanting to
you know,
mention,
the subject's so
just
vast you
jumping in
can't
here.
really even
Just to jump
yeah.
in here a little bit. Yeah, the idea of intelligence, that you're going to be able to have enhanced intelligence. Well, one aspect of intelligence is you might wonder, okay, what would be the purpose of intelligence? To make having enhanced intelligence, first of all.
Right.
Would it be to make you richer, or more powerful, or happier, or what would be the purpose
No.
of it? But let me go on here, and that what your goal is by having enhanced intelligence is going to be really an important aspect to keep in mind when you're deciding what kind of intelligence you want to put into your enhanced brain, right?
Yes, that's right.
Because is it just going to be facts and figures and dates from old battles, historical information that is, is it going to be psychological knowledge about human nature or something like that? Somebody wrote some books and they've decided that human nature is this and human nature is that. But presumably also one of the major reasons why they would want to have the kind of intelligence you would want to have would be the intelligence that would make you a more successful person and a happier person, and so you succeed better in life. But I think that one aspect that they're not really dealing with is there is this type of intelligence that you might have that would make you less of a jerk,
Okay, but
and less of an asshole, essentially. But
let me say this.
But I don't think they're thinking in those terms.
You're
like-
thinking in the wrong terms. Okay, so for instance, when we talked about the hive mind, you can't think in terms of the hive mind because for you and I, that is such a foreign, alien concept that it's really hard to think in terms of the hive mind. Like, are we bees? No. But they think in terms of the hive mind. It isn't about what makes you happier and better. It is about what makes they see it as
they
it is
don't-
a must. We must evolve in this way.
But they actually talk about happiness and well-being and greater spirituality. They do.
Not of an individual. Not of
They
an
do,
individual.
of an individual. They do. They do talk. At least they think that you will be happier, and you will be. That's part of evolution for them, is to be happier. I was just watching a video before the show. That was one aspect of it. It was well-being. It was long life. It was increased intelligence. Presumably, they want to be happier. But you're saying that they don't want to be happier.
They see it
necessarily.
also as like because they see themselves as very moral, the ultimate morality. It's far beyond what you and I could imagine. A
All
high
inferior
morality, a very
people-
high morality.
all inferior people must be killed.
And they see this as a must-do. In other words, we must evolve in this fashion. It is the right thing to do, and it is the right thing for everyone. Okay, it won't be the right thing for the humans who choose not to, or too poor to be augmented, or too poor to eventually merge. There will always be humans in their mind. There will be. It will just be a separation.
Mm-hmm.
But what you don't understand is that they really do see this as, remember,
Merging with God, merging
I've
with
never
God.
seen these movies, but a whole lot of people have seen these. There's a really famous movie, The Borg. Who is the Borg? It's like a
well,
Star
that's
Trek.
from Star Trek. Yeah.
Star Trek.
That's a hive mind.
That's
where
a
you
hive
join
mind.
Join the Borg. There is no escape. Join
The
you
Borg
have to
is
join
the
or die.
model. The Borg is the model. And now imagine the lady Borg. She's really awful looking, isn't she's her name is Judy Davis, I think, and she has like this really hideous thing. But notice there are aspects of her that are extremely sexy. Like, she's so they're mixing that in your mind that it is just such an attractive thing to become part of the
Yeah.
Borg.
It's kind of cool.
It's
yeah.
very cool,
Trendy,
and it's
trendy.
very wonderful, and it will be an enhancement of
Mm-hmm.
all parts of your life, sex and everything, not
Mm-hmm.
just your intelligence. If you will become part of the hive mind, you will have virtual pleasures that are so far beyond what you can imagine in your physical body or that you have now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll be far beyond
Yeah,
that.
so it's a state of, they hope to achieve a state of perpetual bliss,
Yes,
essentially,
and-
which would be the same thing that was promised by Eastern mystics when they talk about achieving nirvana, for instance.
Yes.
The state of would be oneness with God,
Yes,
which
but-
would be eternal that's the ultimate happiness.
But also
right?
in Buddhism, there's a whole element of that feelings themselves are somehow antithesis to happiness. In other words, if you could become completely detached, you would not have to. And they've borrowed from that. If you are partly machine, or you are all machine, or you've become machine in some strange integrated way.
By downloading your consciousness
You will
into
not,
a machine.
yes, uploading. But you will
Or
not,
uploading,
yes,
yeah, uploading,
you
yeah.
you won't have to worry about those pesky feelings anymore. You won't have to worry even about love. It won't be about issues like that. When they say merging with God, it isn't because they see God as love. It won't be like that. It's something else entirely.
Yeah.
That your mind can't really touch on. My mind can't really touch on. It's a very, very ugly.
Well, I think
It's a very ugly reality, but to them, it's the most beautiful thing.
It's sort of like the ultimate nerd dream, of being a brain in a bottle.
Yeah,
or
bring a
something
brain
like
in
that,
a bottle, and
and not. In other words, the bullies can't beat you up on the beach anymore because you'll have ultimate power, and you can
Yes.
zap them from some kind of satellite or something that will,
Yes.
just disintegrate them in front of your eyes. It's like, I am all powerful. I am bigger than the more.
Yeah.
I may look like a 98-pound skinny weakling, but in reality, I am connected to the most powerful machine on the
Yeah,
planet.
that's right.
We have satellites. We have total surveillance. We have ultimate power.
But
and
in
this
the
is
end,
a-
it's
this
like-
this is why I think of these transhumanists as basically like 12-year-olds
Yeah,
at the
they're-
most.
they're awful.
That's on the level that they're really operating.
I
If you
agree.
really listen to
I
them,
agree with that.
like Aubrey Gray, these people are. It's sad in a sense that they're in, because they're completely out of touch with what is going on inside of their own bodies.
They think you're
apparently,
sad. They think you're sad, Dane.
Yeah. Well, you know, people
They
once
think you're really
once,
sad.
once they get that PhD from Harvard, they think they're better. They think they're superior.
Well, and when you talked about, backtracking a little to what you talked about, what is the, what's the upshot of all this intelligence? What's the goal? You know, why would it be so great? And you have to understand that the goal of all psychopaths everywhere and at all times is always to, there is no compassion or empathy or feeling in a psychopath. Now, I think the psychopathic agenda, and here's why, is because control really is the ultimate power.
Right.
And
That's what they think.
they think that. And for instance, and the ways that transhumanism will use beings is really bizarre. But back to media will tell you everything. It tells the story in fiction. I'd like to do the Dollhouse. This is a very interesting television program that I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No.
I watched it and it was very creepy. And it will tell you a little bit of the plans. These people were used as slaves, and what happens is their consciousness is wiped, and then they are programming is downloaded into them to make them anything. So if somebody wants a woman for sex, or somebody wants, and these are young criminals, and what happens is that they trade 5 or 10 years of their lives and let their bodies be used. And this is actually something that they are working on in science very hard. So will you upload that Dollhouse trailer for us?
So you say this is a TV show,
Yeah, it's a TV show.
and is it a new TV show?
No, I think it's about 5 years old, or is this it?
But is it a popular TV show?
It's a cable TV show. I think it was pretty popular.
And it's called so the
The
criminals.
Dollhouse.
The criminals in
Young criminals. They trade.
when
they
you
were gonna
say
go to
trade
jail.
10 years of their lives. So this is a way of preventing themselves from being killed or for crimes, or going to jail for crimes.
Yeah, something
They-
like that.
So they
and
get
then
off,
they get money too.
and then they're just
They have what
used for 10
everybody
years.
wants.
Yeah, that's right.
They live every life,
And
have every skill, every experience.
There's nothing.
While we're waiting for that to load, I want.
Are they conscious? Do they know what's happening to them, or do they go to
No.
sleep for 10 years or something, and are used?
They go to
or do you
sleep,
know?
which kind of brings me to a topic, and I know we're trying to cover too many. Are you ready? Okay.
Okay.
They have what everybody wants. They live every life, have every skill, every experience.
There's nothing real about it. They're programmed.
Did I fall asleep?
For a little while.
Joss Whedon, the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
She's living the dream.
Whose dream? Comes the year's most original new series.
Nothing is what it appears to be.
Dollhouse, coming soon to Fox.
Okay, yeah, so that really is addressing some of this technology that we're talking about, isn't it?
It's upon us, and we think that this is just science fiction, and it's just so fun to watch all this stuff. And you can watch the Sci-Fi Channel. Now, you know I haven't watched TV in 30 years, but sometimes I get a glimpse, or I'm at somebody's house, and you want to know what's happening. Sci-fi is the way for you to know, because it's predictive programming.
Yeah, a lot of it
things.
is, for sure.
And it's really important that we understand that we're being, it's...
Well, part of the reason why they use predictive programming is to get people used to the technology that's about
ideas.
to be
No, that's
publicly
right.
announced.
That's right.
And they call it science fiction, but oftentimes they actually have the technology already, but they just haven't released it, and they want people to be acclimatized to the new
that's right.
developments.
That's right.
And they delay it until they feel like people are maybe more ready to accept it in some ways. But also it is a control mechanism too, because if you feel if you have a sense, maybe even subconscious, that this is the future, that this is inevitable,
Right.
and you don't know why it's inevitable, but back in your subconscious is the fact that some movie told you
That's
it was
right.
inevitable
That's
20
right.
years ago.
Oh, that's
or
absolutely
something
right.
like that.
That's absolutely
right. And so you're subconsciously expecting this. So when it actually happens, it's not that surprising.
That's right.
And you don't know that it didn't just happen.
That's
But
right.
it was actually part of a plan, a long-term plan. I talk about this a lot on my show, that you have planners, an entire planner class.
Yes.
And they were working, they're professors in universities, they're
Right.
scientists, they're advisors to governments, and they have meetings.
Right.
And they write books to each other
Right.
that most Americans don't even read and don't even know about. But it's quite open. They're quite open. They're
Oh,
not
yeah,
trying
that's
to
right.
hide it.
Quite open.
Not trying to hide it or anything. And they also, the intelligence communities are all connected into
Right.
this. And the intelligence communities on this level work together, and they're not even really enemies, oftentimes, even though their governments may be rivals or even enemies. But at this very high level, you know, they love this because they feel like they're a special elite group.
Well, let
You
me
know?
just say that a lot of
And-
this is
and so-
mundane science. A lot of this is very mundane science. So when we talk about the Nazis wanted to do this through genetics, think now how artificial insemination seemed to us, a few year ago. Oh, it was so awful. Now we have the 3-parent baby. And if you want to know if that's really true, we have a link to that site. But let me just say that it's true. There is a baby with 3 parents. She's been born. And how will that baby breed with someone else? How can she? She's got the DNA from 3 parents. Because we are, like you talked about Gattaca, a very predictive movie. But look how passé genetics seems to us now. Well, now we've mapped the genome, and now we've got artificial insemination, and we've got these designer baby idea, right? It's also cool, and now we've got a baby that's born has the genetics of 3 parents, and so we're not only creating these babies, but we're also creating hybrid things. We all know that. GMO foods are hybrid, and now they're creating animals. Make no mistake about it, they are in labs all across the world creating animals in which different animals are being put together. Not just zebras and donkeys, and and even cloning seems a little passé to us now. Oh, cloning! Of course we know that is coming, and humans can be cloned also. If you can clone a sheep and you can clone all these animals, then you can clone. One of the things I'd like to talk about, we have 10 minutes left, is not only will humans be augmented, but there is a huge movement to augment animals as well. So as we evolve, so wouldn't it only be moral to evolve animals also to enhance their brains and let them evolve also? It isn't fair, these people argue, that we rely upon nature to leave these poor animals in the dust.
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes, that's right.
That's exactly what that movie is about.
That's exactly right. And I love all the Planet of the Apes movies. I've seen them all.
Even the
and
new ones?
All of them, yes. And the old ones, and I really love them. And I think that they are great movies, amazing social commentary. But let me just say that we did not mention today, and is a really huge subject, DARPA, because a huge part of transhumanism is that, of course, we will have killing machines. Of course, we will do that. And it will create an arms race in which all countries and blocks of countries will have to create these super soldiers, because if you don't, some other country will create super soldiers.
Right.
A lot of this technology
They're
came out of
gonna do it, so
Russia
you have
from
to
way
do it.
back. You have to do it.
And you may have given them the technology, or they may have stolen the technology, but they're going to get the technology, just like the drones.
And the
all
technology-
the countries will have drones
that's right.
eventually.
Well,
All
even
the-
Japan
if you can afford them.
Even Japan has changed its constitution to allow it to have drones.
Okay, yeah.
And recently,
Spreading around the world.
that's
yeah.
right. And when we talk about DARPA, is a really huge subject.
So what is
and it's-
DARPA? Can you define it for us? What's DARPA stand for?
I don't know what DARPA
Defense?
stands. Defense robotics and.
It's about robotics, basically?
Yes, and at first I think that a lot of people, if they know about DARPA, they think that DARPA is mostly concerned with robotics because the few, you can go on in these few little videos and there's these really awkward looking machines and like little, a really huge dog and it chases people through the forest and it is kind of frightening.
Oh, robotic dog, yeah.
Yes, except that we've
I've
seen that in so many movies. It's not, that frightening to us. But believe
Spooky.
me that, when you have killing soldiers, like right now in the DARPA budget, there are millions of dollars to genetically transform our troops in some ways, enhanced eyesight,
Okay, yeah.
body armor and things like that.
Yeah.
And when you think about this,
Also amnesiacs, so that they won't
Amnesiacs.
remember what they did and they won't have to worry about PTSD.
eternal
'cause you won't-
sunshine of the spotless mind, where you
won't-
won't have to remember painful things.
Right, yeah, exactly. They're working on that because, as you know, PTSD is a major issue.
Because humans don't want to kill other humans. It's
right.
a really big problem. You
Well,
have
not-
right
not-
now we're already using mercenary armies. We use mercenaries because mercenaries do not have they don't have the connection. So
They're mostly psychopaths.
if we turn
Anyway.
into a police state, of course they will use mercenary armies because mercenaries won't feel any compunctions. But a robotic army or
That's the next step, isn't
artificial
it, really? Well, they
intelligence.
already are using robots in the military.
Absolutely.
But they just don't
Thank
look
you.
like humans yet. But they're working on that, on getting them to move and think and act and kill like humans. So
even drones are unmanned. Back in the Twilight Zone, when I was a kid, we always watched the Twilight Zone in black and white on TV. And I'll never forget when I heard about drones for the first time years ago, and then now they're shrinking drones down to nearly nothing, miniaturizing everything really.
Sure.
And in the Twilight Zone, people would walk around in society, and these little machines would watch them, and they committed any infraction at all, like spitting or something. You would be punished by this little drone.
Sure. Yeah, right.
And in keeping with predictive programming and how, yes, and so when you say this is an emerging science, it isn't an emerging science. It has been around for a very long time, very long time.
But the science of robotics has really been advancing with leaps
Very
and bounds
fast.
recently.
That's right.
And that's why I said that, really.
Yes.
That's what I meant. It's,
Yes.
Well,
I didn't. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying
obviously,
to criticize.
alchemy and science has been around. Attempts at science has been around probably since cavemen. But you haven't. But in the 21st century, my perception is that everything is moving so much faster and getting more it's sort of separating out from and becoming the science of transhumanism. I never heard of transhumanism maybe before 10 years ago.
Well, when you say emerging, it is a really true statement because it is emerging out of the darkness, but it is not new. Right?
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thanks very much,
Yeah,
Lily,
thank you.
for spending some time with
That's
us
great.
today. And I think this has been
Barely covered it.
very enlightening. We could probably do another show on this if you want to.
We could do 100, and it would be.
Well, I don't know about that many, but it might bore the audience. But it is very interesting and intriguing and kind of chilling and scary
Yes.
because it is the future. And as somebody said in an Ed Wood movie, that's where we'll be living for the rest of our lives. So it's really important, the future.
Our immortal lives. Right.
So that's all for today. And sleep well, friends. We'll see you next week.